had a week off. I'm a little bit smelly, but I'm back in the bath again at the tap end. Welcome. Really excited by today's guest. It's somebody that I met through a previous tap end attendee. So, in fact, actually, but I've actually met him more times since, and I really quite like him, what he does, what he stands for. Really powerful story. Resonate with it a lot. And Mr. Dave Scholes, welcome to At the Tap End today. How the devil are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm very good, thank you. This is ideal, absolutely ideal for me.
Yeah, I love it. When was the last time you had a bath at 1 o'clock on a weekday?
I'd like to say that it's not a common thing, but it is, mate. I've got this little, I think it's the lockdown thing, this little ritual that I started during lockdown going, I'm rubbish at working late on in the day and I'm much better in the morning. So I start this nice little routine of early start and all that kind of stuff. And then start throwing this little snooze in the afternoon, little 20 minutes, 40 minutes, much better for the rest of the day, which has expanded on some days to a little bit of tub time as well. And I'm all the better for it. I'm all the better for it.
Yeah, no, love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. So for those people who don't know who Dave Scholes is, who is Dave Scholes?
Dave Scholes is a ginger gent from Burnley. We have a business called Six Connections, which is all around really supporting people to start the conversations that sometimes we don't have in and around mental health, trying to make it as normal a part of life as we possibly can, on the footy terraces, in cafes and all that kind of stuff, without it being this massive stereotype stigma thing that unfortunately is in many places. So yeah, that's me. That's what we do.
Wow. So when I was thinking before I knew you were joining me today, I was thinking about conversations and difficult conversations. So you are the self-proclaimed conversation starter.
Correct, indeed.
And I think and that is not an easy thing to do. You cannot. So when I was thinking about growing up, you'd be going to the school disco, and there'd be a girl or a boy that you would like, and you wouldn't necessarily go and start a conversation. So those are quite difficult conversations. Yeah. When you go into a bar, difficult conversation. People you've not first met, difficult conversation. But the conversations that you're trying to normalize are 10 times more difficult.
Yeah,
aren't they?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, that analogy for the school disco and all that kind of stuff, because I'm not a naturally comfortable person in crowds where I don't know people. I mean, I had this conversation with a mate from you the day. I don't think I ever had any sort of romantic success in a nightclub ever, because I didn't have that, the patter that most lads have, that they go in and there's a bit. It wasn't for me, and I just didn't have it unless I was interested in the conversation. It wasn't for me. So that's never been a style of conversation that I've been comfortable with. What I've realized in what we do is that people were resonating with my conversation because it was authentic. As we've spoke, the story and the stuff that's gone on with my life, people resonated with, even though it wasn't necessarily something they'd been through. And I think that's where we're hitting with this, that we're saying, these tough conversations actually come on the back of relationship. You can't just go diving into a really tough conversation about mental health or, other serious topics without knowing the person that you're having the conversation with. So we're going, look, rather than every time anybody mentions mental health conversation, it being a negative thing, how about it just sits in those conversations with the footy and tomorrow night's tea and friends and family? Because that's what you built a relationship on, isn't it? The best conversations you have are either with people that you meet for the first time that you're finding out stuff about them and you're interested, or it's with people that you've known for a long, long time and the conversation just flows. And that's the dream, mate, for this. Absolutely.
Yeah. So powerful. How do you know when is the right time to have a conversation about well-being or mental health? And I guess, how do you start that conversation, and what are the triggers to start that conversation?
I think, again, it goes back to that relational thing. And we say this a lot when we go into businesses, because they ask that question. Like I'm saying, well, our approach is we want to speak to the people that shop floor or whatever. This isn't about somebody in HR or somebody in management coming down and trying to start a conversation with somebody that are staff members come and say, look, they're struggling. This is about being sat next to somebody and starting to understand about them, you know, noticing when they're different, how they left on a Friday, how they came back on a Monday, and almost easing into these conversations sometimes. And I think that the thing that we've learned more than anything is when people have got their own story or they've got something that they're personally willing to open up on, it doesn't have to be anything deep. It just gives people license to start their own conversation. And the absolute key to this, mate, is it's not been necessarily about talking. It's been about listening. The key to the conversations we have are 100% about listening. You know, you're not a fixer, you're not the solution, you're not all these kind of things. Sometimes you're just a listening ear. You know, maybe you're the trigger to let somebody get something off the chest. Sometimes you just need to, in the nicest tough time scenario, lie back and just let people share, because it helps, doesn't it? It helps.
Yeah, it does. It does. I see what you did there as well. I like that. So you've mentioned story a few times, and I know you've got a really powerful story. And this is kind of how you got in to becoming comfortable with these types of conversations that you're supportive of and starting. Do you want to just share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I lost my best mate to suicide 10 years ago. 10 years ago, only a couple of months back, actually. And that started my own journey in and around my own mental health and well-being. You know, there'd been little bits in my life in the past. I was always quite an anxious kid and all these kind of things. But I got to a stage where this whole situation that understandably came in from left field just threw me. You know, a lot of stuff in and around blame and grief that I'd never really experienced before and didn't really understand what it was linked to. You know, I was a little bit of stress in work and all these kind of things, and you start to point the finger at other stuff. But what I realized was that it was all linked back to this. You know, I was blaming myself for something that I couldn't have done anything about, really. So did the usual thing, you know, went to see the GP, start to talk about some of the stuff I was struggling with. And their first bit of advice was, well, you enjoy snowboarding, so go and enjoy your life. And it just didn't hit me, to be honest. It wasn't quite the advice I don't think I needed or was expecting. And there was a bit of me just went, the person that's meant to fix me, the professional, you know, like taking your car to the garage, didn't. And I was really fortunate. I had good family, good friends that kind of stuck an arm around and went, well, maybe it's just, you know, one guy on a bad day. You know, it's just 10 years ago. There wasn't as much around mental health, even in you know, the GP world as there is now. And they just helped me with a few other options. You know, some people that were in the NHS gave me some options into professional support, but there was always that arm round. And mate, just, you know, want to come out for a brew? Do you want to come out for a beer? Don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you, whatever that looks like. And that was kind of where all this mindset and six connection stuff came from. I thought if I can navigate some of this stuff myself, then probably anybody can navigate some of this stuff. And it was only about options. You know, it wasn't about me having all the right solutions, because some stuff I did worked and some stuff I didn't work. But what I realized was I started to talk to other people about it, you know, and I could recognize in them some of the stuff that I was going through. I was doing some charity work at the time and working with lads that were coming from some really tough places, you know, prison release and drug and alcohol issues. And I was starting to benefit from being able to help them, you know, and giving a little bit back. So I had this kind of yin yang thing of I was getting support and help whilst giving other people support and help. And then you start to meet the right people, you know, and you realize you've suddenly got this toolkit of options and things that you can share with other people that start with well, this worked for me and it worked for me because, and this is the process. And you start to take away some of the, I guess, the concerns and the worries that people have in this arena of not knowing what they're entering into. And it's just a hand-holding exercise that we do, really, you know, putting people together that have walked this a little bit further than you, that are happy to go on the journey with you, you know, give you some advice and some help without feeling like they have to fix you, but just being a part of that, whether that's a small part or a big part. Everybody can do that. Everybody can play a part in helping other people, whatever you've been through. And it feels quite unique, mate. You know, we're sitting in this space somewhere between the campaign that starts people talking around mental health, you know, ask your mate twice and all this kind of stuff, and this massive raft of solutions at the top, everything from yoga to walking your dog to suicide prevention. We kind of sit in the middle going, right, you've started to talk, let's help to direct you into what are often multiple solutions, mate. You know, you can have the best counsel in the world, but you still go to footy on a Saturday afternoon and you still go back into your family. So all of these things together make a stronger connection of support and help that you can tap into. And then when you're in a position to do that, you can share with others. You know, it's a never-ending circle of support and help, and it just feels nice, mate, to be honest. That's kind of how it is.
Yeah, really valuable what you do as well. Like you say, it's not about providing all of the answers, but it's about pointing people into direction to help them find the answers that's relevant for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you work with businesses.
Yep.
How will a business know that they can benefit from Dave and Six Connections? And the reason why I ask that is because we're coming to the end of a pandemic. Fingers crossed. Well, we're out of the worst part of it, and a lot of people would have suffered from loss and of different forms. Maybe personal loss, maybe bereavement, maybe financial loss and stuff. Different forms of loss, but some people have not, and some people are coming out of it maybe stronger as well. It depends upon their own individual situation. So, dependent upon whether the business leader sees a need, how do you try to convince, or how do you get them to see how you at Six Connections can help them with their people? Because everybody's different and everybody's journey is different.
Absolutely, and that's been the really difficult thing for us, to be honest. I mean, we set up 2 weeks before the pandemic started, so we are a pandemic business. You know, our model is very much around trying to challenge some of the things that businesses have bought in the past. Not saying that they're wrong, but to help businesses understand that there's more than just maybe having a mental health first aider in your team. You know, Barbara is now mental health first aid trained. She's got to go and speak to 40 blokes in manufacturing about mental health. Well, there's no relationship there. There's nothing in that mix. And we had this challenge, you know, going into businesses where some staff were doing brilliantly and great. You know, that's fabulous. Some weren't doing so great. Some were going back into an office environment that they didn't want to be in. Some were going back and begging to be back in the office environment. So you had all this culture shift and change without even looking at some of the tougher stuff, like you say, you know, actually the loss of life and the loss of family and loved ones. So we have tried our best to convince people that this is a good thing. But what I've realized, mate, is that you can't. And it sounds really ridiculous, but unless the decision maker at the top or whoever's pulling the purse strings is saying yes to this, how the 100 people below them are is still challenging. You know, it might be down to finance, it might be down to money. We've had a lot of conversations where people have said, we'll just wait till January, see how people are doing. I'm going, why is something happening between now and January to make everybody better? Because I don't think that's a good option. So that's where the Six Connections came from with the beers and the coffee and all that kind of stuff. You know, people in the decision world in a business weren't being selfish. It was just being put in with everything else, marketing budgets and getting a company back in place and all this kind of stuff. And we were suddenly not just part of a wellbeing industry, which we're very different to. We were suddenly in the wellbeing industry in a space where we were competing with everything else that was pulling on time and purse strings. So we created the products. The products were, how do we get to the people that we need to reach without the permission of one or two at the top? Yeah. So very simply, you know, we decided where are people? Well, they're in cafes, they're in bars, they're on the football terraces. So let's put a wellbeing message onto cans of beer and bags of coffee, which most people went, you can't do that. It's not good for your mental health. And I went, actually, it was really good for mine. You know, we're not advocating go out and get absolutely battered and then start talking about mental health. We're saying, where would you normally have a conversation? What would you normally have a conversation with? Orange juice, tea, coffee, it doesn't matter. But how do we start the conversation? So we took this tagline, real conversations powered by mates, and we put this QR code onto the most Lancashire-based products ever, you know, tea, coffee, biscuits, and linked that back into a website of help and support. So that the site is designed for the mate that wants to help, not necessarily for the person that's struggling, although that is available on the site. Because we thought, as this is taking place in businesses, if we can't get in, either because our sales pitch isn't strong enough or because somebody else is there, we can still help people. And that's what we want to do. And the interesting flip, mate, now has been that businesses are now taking those products and going, actually, a coffee bag with a QR code on in our staff room allows us as a business to start having those conversations with staff where maybe we can then bring you in. Because what I realized really quickly was a lot of businesses were saying no to us because they didn't know how to have the conversation to get people into our space. Yeah. So I've got, okay, well, we'll solve your problem by helping you to have those conversations. And you may never get us in to do a delivery, but you can create a website for your members of staff linked to bags of coffee and bags of tea that are around the office all the time. And yes, it might be a bit of a tick box for you, but at least it's a tick box where somebody can come back to it anytime they want. And it grows. You know, you go back with a packet of tea from work and your missus picks the tea up and has a brew, and all of a sudden there's a QR code on the back. People are nosy, so they'll click a QR code. I mean, you know, the pandemic's been great for us because everybody's clicking QR codes now. You know, nobody was using QR codes 18 months ago, and all of a sudden it's how you're booking restaurants and all that kind of stuff. So when it's accessible, it's there all the time. So that's what we've done. You know, we're at a stage where we're almost trying to sell to the semi-converted, mate. I think that's our sales pitch. We've gone, you know, some people aren't ready for this, but there's a lot of people that are. And they're the people we want to speak to, because the more they speak about it, the more the doubters and the cynics, which you'll always have in this industry, because it's so many different things to different people. We want them to sell the story to their connections and their relationships, because it's trust, isn't it? Somebody says we're brilliant at what we do, and you've already got a relationship with them, on you go. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, completely. What you touched on then as well, I was nodding along because so we do something completely different. We introduce operational excellence systems and programs, I guess, and get leaders to start talking about metrics in a way that engages people and stuff. And what we find is we'll introduce like a new rhythm of meetings and get the leader to stand up and then deliver a conversation there and ask questions to try to get the people to try to open up on what's causing maybe a dip in performance, or ideas and solutions and stuff. And what we found is we can introduce the solution, but without supporting and coaching the leaders to have the questions and to actually not speak first, to listen exactly like you say, then it doesn't create a full solution. And my question was going to be, if we struggle or the difficulty or the complexity, it comes in the individual feeling comfortable to be naked at the front of a room and ask people, what could we do better tomorrow than we've done today? Then to then ramp that up to 10 and go, are you okay? Without knowing the answers that's coming back, that's quite a gap, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've started. I mean, a lot of the stuff we do, you know, it challenges the norm anyway, because it's just how my head sits with what was comfortable for me. So I'm going into businesses, you know, selling a business-related product, I guess, in many ways, and saying to people, look, this isn't about necessarily a solution in the workspace. The solution for the people in this space will be unique to everyone. So if you've got 100 members of staff, if you're spending all your money trying to fix this as workplace well-being, you might be wasting your money, because 99 of those members of staff might actually have the benefit of what they need outside of the workspace, and you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole because that's what you've been told to do. So we're going in almost saying, look, we'll help you create the space to have the conversations. That's what we do. And it sounds a very odd thing to do, but actually that space is such a unique thing in business. So we're going, you take everything that you use already, whether you've done mental health first aid, you've got a great employee engagement program, you've got links into counseling, whatever it is, keep all of those things, and we'll help your staff to engage with them better if they need to, because they might not do. And we'll also then help your staff to talk about the things they engage with. Because if you've got 100% success rate in your counselling, but only 20 of your 100 staff are going, then that's an issue. But actually what you've got is you've got 20 advocates there for talking to other people about what counselling actually feels like and looks like for them. And people are kind of just going, that's different. Nobody's doing that. I'm saying, yes, you know, if we want to talk about return on investment, that's it. You know, pay for less of those services, get the people that go into those services to come and talk about the experience or talk about some stuff they've gone through. You know, we started this roast and toast thing at the start of COVID that you know about. You know, we got people into a Zoom chat, just started talking about some of these topics that we were all going through. And the strength was the more people shared their story, even little bits, it gave other people license to share theirs. And the more people that started sharing, the more like-minded people you got in the room. You know, they couldn't relate necessarily to what I'd been through from a circumstance point of view, but people could relate to the journey from A to B, and they could appreciate somebody saying, well, actually, I did this, and this is what I've done. And that's what we're looking to do. You know, we want to create this roast and toast plus model where we go into a business and show them how to deliver the thing that we've had success with. You know, creating space and creating culture. And you know, the frightening words for business, you go into a business and start talking about changing culture and they panic. But actually all we're doing is creating space for people to be the best that they can possibly be. And the culture will form itself, whether that's top down, bottom up, top up, bottom down, doesn't matter. Because every business is different and every individual in that business is different. And I think we're now at a stage where just ticking a box and saying we've done a mental health first aid course, it's not washing, because they are good things, but it's like any solution, isn't it? You need more than one. One size doesn't fit all, especially in what we do, and it never will, and it never will.
Yeah. So if a business is listening to this and thinks actually that you're onto something with this, what should they do? What should they do next?
So first protocol, I'm always up for a conversation, as you know, and I think what we have really found for businesses, and this will be our thing for business, whether they use us or not, is make sure you're asking the right questions before you go paying for the solutions. So there's no point bringing all this stuff in, assuming that your staff need X, Y, and Z. You need to ask them. You know, the surveys and all those kind of things are great, but you don't necessarily get the answers that you want. You know, we do sessions where we bring people together and find out what the bugbears are, find out what the successes are and what the failures are, because this isn't just about being negative all the time. This is about saying, right, if we are doing well as a collective, how do we go and support other people? How do we make this wider for the business? So that would be our take. Have a conversation. We've got a load of things that we can bring in, but our starter is always to sit in front of a business and go, right, tell us about yourselves, tell us about your staff, tell us about the last 18 months. And then we always finish that conversation, whoever we are speaking to, with a, how you doing? And that throws people, mate, because that could be the MD, it could be a HR lead, it could be the finance director. And they're usually the most powerful conversations. They're the ones where we know that will make an impact in a business, because there's a bit of authenticity comes in there. When people start to unpack a little bit or say, you know, I've had a rough 18 months, to be honest. And it's got to start with you, Anna. You can't start fixing 40 odd people in a workspace if you're not doing great. So that's our offer to all businesses. Look, we'll help you first, and then we'll start looking after everybody else.
Yeah. So with that question and with the conversations that you've been starting with the different businesses, what are you finding are some of the challenges that people are having?
It's been really interesting to find that people are missing the things that they found in lockdown that they didn't realize they loved. So people are missing being at home with family. People are missing the actual time. People have now started to enjoy the commute again because it gives them a little bit of space. So it's been quite small things in a lot of cases that have been the most common. So people have obviously had big loss and you know, they've lost loved ones and things like that. But there's almost been a route to cope with that. There's almost been like direct options of conversations to have through loss, through professional care. But it's the little bits of going, I used to be in an office with 30 people and I love the banter. And now I'm in an office with 5 and it feels lonely. But I feel silly talking about that because there's 5 other people here not talking about it. And what you realize is those are the 5 missing the bounce as well, you know, and it's the little things that people aren't talking about that I think in 4, 5, 6 months time are going to be the things that are causing the problems on a larger scale. You know, as you know, all kind of anxiety based things, they start low, they start with something, and it's, you know, if something's welling in there that you're not dealing with, and it's not ideal. And I think sometimes because of how businesses have made decisions about, right, well, we're going to close the massive office and we're just going to go to 3 days a week, and because they can't make really individual decisions for everybody. That's not how it works. There's got to be a semi-collective on that. We've got, look, let's just bring people into a space. Let's bring people into something that they're comfortable with, and just start to pop these little bits of conversation out. The water cooler moments, that bit where you used to grab a brew in the canteen and put the world to rights, and then you go back and it was 5 minutes of your day that you didn't realize how important it was. And some of that's gone. There's relationships in workspaces that have gone now, that because you don't see the people that you used to work with. And you realize you don't make the effort to see them outside of work. So friendship groups have changed, and a lot, mate. There's been so many things, but it's the little stuff that people are throwing in as like a last minute, oh yeah, and I really miss. And you can tell in the tone of voice that actually they do really miss it. And it matters a lot more than they may be voicing at this stage, which obviously has repercussions, done it small or large.
No, it does. It does. And if you don't ask those questions, you don't get those answers. So you never understand and never know and never learn, and you can't address it.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wanted to start a conversation with you, Mr. Scholes, where would they go? How would they go about that?
So website is sixconnections.co.uk. So that has all the products on there. That has a little bit of information about our support networks and all the conversation starters that we've put on there. hello@sixconnections.co.uk is how to get in touch with me. And all the social media is 6_connections, but take all the vowels out, because that's very difficult to get onto Instagram. So it's SIX_CNNCTNS.
Hey, very good. Yeah. No, amazing. I just want to say, Dave, thank you so much for the conversation today. You've been on the podcast as well, that conversation. But more than that, just having the conversations in a non-recorded format as well. I've got so much from you. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you over the past couple of months. And what you stand for, your journey, I think inspirational, and I think that the help and support that you offer is amazing. So thank you very much, Mr. Scholes.
Much appreciated. Cheers, buddy.
See you later.
Take care. See you later.